Welcome back to the Balance Breakdown, everybody. Myself, Ian O'Neill, Harry Powell, with you as always to break down the UFC Vegas 83 card, I believe it was. It's hard to keep up these days between Song Yadong and Chris Gutierrez. And I mean, this card wasn't great on paper. I don't know. I maybe was a little bit harsh on it. I didn't really enjoy it all that much. It was just like, I don't know, Harry, with cards like this, sometimes it's like, I want this card to be over so I can get to UFC 296, which can kind of throw a little bit of a shadow over it and maybe skew your opinion a little bit. But, as I was watching it, and I don't know, I'll need to make an executive decision going into 2024 to probably not watch these live and maybe watch back the next morning. So that I can skip through a lot of the nonsense, but it just seems like so long. What did we have? We had like 11 fights, which wasn't too bad, but a late stint. They had it late. It only started at like 6:30 my time, and it didn't finish until almost midnight on Saturday, and that didn't really add to my enjoyment of it either. But look at a couple of stories, a couple of talking points to talk that happened on the card, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to get into them. It's going to be a quicker breakdown than normal this week because we want to spend a little bit more time this week talking about the UFC 296 card, which we will preview. Little secret, we do these back to back every week, so we're going to cut a little bit of time off the breakdown, add a little bit of time onto the preview, but I'm sure that will be all right to anyone who's listening. Harry, how are you, my friend? Are you keeping well? That's the last UFC fight night of the year. We've done it again from start to finish. It's been a marathon for fight nights, but this is the last one. I'm going into a big pay-per-view, obviously, but what were your thoughts on this card overall? Are you looking forward to kind of getting into a few of these fights and how they kind of materialized, shall we say?
Yeah, so I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? Which is that the anticipation for 296 is so vast that in comparison to this specific card, it makes the card seem worse than it probably is, right? Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a shame that Khalil Roundtree had to switch up his opponent so quick so shortly before the fight. Apologies, I'm just tripping over my words here. But for the most part, most of the other fights were fine. Like, there was nothing outside of Tatsuto Taira, and we'll get to him. But there was nothing that I felt egregiously negative about. But in the same vein, I wasn't egregiously moved the other way either. And I think, frankly, from a fight night card, that's a pretty successful card. You've gotten through the card. You've got maybe one or two really, really excellent storylines. You have a main event that doesn't blow up and it goes, however long it goes. And then that leads us nicely into 296, which really, really sends 2023 off with a bang. And so whilst, sure, I think you're absolutely right that you shouldn't be watching these cards live. 6.5 hours is a vast slog for, frankly, any fight card, but specifically a fight night card in the apex of all places. So, yeah, but I think overall, I'm not high on the card, but I'm also not super low on the card either. I'm pretty neutral.
Yeah. I did text Shawnee on Sunday and said it was a horrible card, but I was more like fucking like I just didn't want to spend that time on Saturday night for some reason on that card. But whatever. Let's go. Let's cut out the giving out. Let's talk about what did happen, because plenty did happen. Song Yadong in the main event took out Chris Gutierrez by unanimous decision. My thoughts on this fight, Harry, are I felt that this was a good fight for Song Yadong to have somewhat of a coming out party, the next kind of push up the rankings, but it didn't really go that way for him. He was fairly dominant throughout. The fight was somewhat competitive when it was on the feet, but like you said, we had a little bit of a chit chat before. Song Yadong made the decision midway through the fight to take Chris Gutierrez down, and that was kind of the real stamp on the envelope for the win for the Chinese man coming in here, looking to make a mark. I don't feel he made a mark. I'm curious to hear what you felt about his performance. I think it shows us that he needs a little bit longer, perhaps. Now, I suppose on top of that, you've got to add the emotions, is that he was supposed to be fighting somebody else on the card. I believe he was originally scheduled. I don't know. It's not written down here, but I do believe he was scheduled to fight a ranked opponent. He mentioned that in his post-fight interview. and that got pulled out. I didn't really see anything about that myself, but that, along with the fact that this fight was also supposed to be in Shanghai, so you've gone from the high of maybe competing in your home nation in Shanghai, something that means a whole awful lot to you, to competing in the shed, in the apex, in front of 50 people. And yeah, no, that can kind of have an effect on you mentally too. The performance itself, Harry, what were some of the highlights for you in Song Yadong's performance?
So I wasn't really impressed, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I think that one thing, if I'm to compliment him, as always, hits very, very hard. Dropping Gutierrez really badly in the third, and Gutierrez did a good job to steady himself and stay in the fight. But I thought that one thing he did do is when he found the weakness, he just kept hammering it, and that's the mark of a solid fighter. You know what I mean? Like, it was pretty tentative in that first round. It was very close, just loads and loads of kicks exchanged, and then the second round again, there was just not a ton happening on the feet, really, in terms of one fighter pulling away from the other. I think if we'd have stayed on the feet for the 5 rounds, just the power of Song Yadong likely would have made that fight for him. But I agree with you entirely that this was supposed to be a coming out party. We know what Gutierrez is, right? He's solid on the feet, good kickboxer, really, really great kicking range, but not a ton outside of that. And what I wanted to see from Song Yadong was jabs. I wanted to see jabs. I wanted to see parrying kicks. I wanted to see counters. Gutierrez usually kicks in ones, if not max twos. And so start countering those shots primarily with straight shots, and then look for your leaping body shots and these sorts of things. And I just didn't see it. Like, Song was just throwing hooks and Gutierrez was just throwing kicks and spinning things. And I'm like, we're supposed to be elite level fighters in one of the most dominant divisions in the UFC. Like, what are we?
I feel that Song Yadong's striking took a little bit of a backstep here in comparison to what we've seen with Corey Sandhagen, and maybe that's fighting to the level of your competition or something like that. But, like, fresh, and it probably doesn't come in was fresh of our mind when we seen Arman Saryukin. And this is what I could like to compare to now. This fight with Song Yadong and Gutierrez is a lot smaller to scale as what Arman Saryukin did when he went in and fought Beneil Dariush. But you got the feeling before Saryukin went in there that, this fight was made for him to kind of be successful and for him to get a big finish. And I felt that this one was the same for Song Yadong as well, especially, bringing it over to China like the original plan. You want to get a big finish in front of your home audience, and it just didn't come for Song Yadong at all. But was there anything that you've seen from Chris Gutierrez that, maybe kind of made it a little bit harder for Song Yadong than he maybe would have been expecting before the fight happened?
So I think that certainly the defensive footwork from Chris Gutierrez was better than Song thought he was going to have. Gutierrez did a really good job of skirting the cage in sort of the second and the third rounds when he was on his feet. And in the first round, I think Song really struggled to find the pattern of the kicks. And that was causing him all sorts of problems. He was he just started trading kicks back, and I'm like, what are we doing here? And so I think there was, for sure, you have to give credit to Chris Gutierrez. That's his fight, right? That's the way he fights. That's how he likes to fight. And so, he certainly dragged Song Yadong into his game in that first round. But this is a very bold statement from me, but I'll make it anyway. I just think Gutierrez broke in that third round and in the latter stages of the fourth. For you to have been controlled for near on 10 minutes, beaten up pretty badly in the third, and then dominated in the fourth, for you to come out in the fifth and pull an Imanari roll is just
ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Like,
I don't know what we're doing.
The word self-sabotage was used in the boot, and it's not far off it, to be honest. It was a good call because there was a couple of instances throughout the fight. One where he reacted to the crowd, to someone talking shit with him, which is like, yeah, whatever. That guy is going to talk shit in the crowd. He can hear it, but you shouldn't be able to hear that thing. You should be like putting that into the back of your mind. He reacted. Kind of just accepted takedowns as well as the fight went on, and then going for the Imanari roll. I mean, his coaches must have had their heads in their hands when they're seeing that. It's one of the most baffling things that I've seen, and obviously didn't do him any good. Song Yadong went on, got the decision win, which begs the question, Harry, is what we'd like next for him. It would have been a different conversation, I feel, if he had went out there and got the finish. He didn't get that finish, so we're at where we're at right now, and I'm very curious maybe to hear who you might like to have him in there next to it?
You know, I don't know. Like, I wanted to call a Piotr Jan or someone like that if he went out and made a statement, but he didn't.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know. Like, do you still do a Piotr Jan type fight? Do you do a Davison Figueiredo type fight to say, if you don't get to the level that we think that you're supposed to be, you're going to get lit up in this one, you know?
Yeah.
But because the thing that baffles me a little is the stuff about the emotions about China and whatever. Forget it. You're a professional fighter. Like, when
That's fair.
goes is, you're a fucking fighter. Go in and fight. Like, and so I don't give too much credence, especially because he had more than enough notice for the China card. If he was in China prepping, knowing, and then 2 weeks out they pulled the card and put it in Vegas, fine. I understand the frustration, but that didn't happen, right? He had ample time for him to organize a camp, and he doesn't even train in China for his full camps. He trains at Team Alpha Male, right? So he's in America anyway. So
that was a narrative, in fairness, the song that I created myself in my own head. He didn't come out and he didn't say that himself, but I'm just looking at, I guess from my perspective, is like I'm looking at a performance like that where I've seen him compete and fight so much better than that, and I'm wondering what could it be? But I'm looking at Gutierrez, who is ranked number 15, Song Yadong up at 7 right now as these stands. So, you know, the Figueiredo is one, you know, Peter Yan is up there. He's probably going to want to be fighting up. I don't know whether Yan will be too interested in that fight. I'm actually looking down after that, and I'm looking at a guy called Jonathan Martinez, and I'm wondering, would that be a kind of a one? Look at Song Yadong is relatively young as well. He might not want to fight down, but he might not have a choice in the matter. And I think maybe another one, get him in there against a guy like Jonathan Martinez, see what he can do, and then maybe you're talking about Peter Yans or whatnot after that. But yeah, the top of the division is getting quite full up. Marab and Henry, yeah. Corey Sandhagen is going to be wanting probably to fight somebody like Peter Yan to try get himself back in there. He could pretty much sit on the shelf as well and get a title shot. But anyway, let's move on, and we'll go to the co-main event. And look at Harry. I mean, there's not too much to say about this. We kind of predicted this. We've been saying this about Anthony Smith, is that, and you know, a lot of people don't like saying it, but I don't mind saying it from time to time, is that I don't know if Anthony Smith should be fighting anymore. I don't think he owes us anything. He's a guy who's had 50 plus fights, almost like 60 plus fights now at this stage. And I'm wondering what the reasoning is for him to be coming in and taking short notices fights at this stage, especially against a guy like Khalil Roundtree Jr., very explosive striker as well. And we've basically seen all the reasons why he shouldn't have taken this fight. Whatever anybody thinks about whether he should continue fighting or not, that's up to Anthony Smith and up to everybody else's opinion. But for me, this was just horrible decision for him to take the fight. And we saw the results of it. He is too tough for his own good. He was knocked out multiple times in this fight, to be honest. And, you know, gladly the fight did come to a halt at the start of round 3. With an uppercut and a left hook combination, which was a beautiful combination, I have to say, from Khalil Roundtree Jr. But I kind of know what your opinion is going to be on this as well. I think we're both like-minded when it comes to what we feel about Anthony Smith competing at the highest level.
Yeah, look, I think the problem, right, is I think that Anthony Smith in his brain knows that he's a good fighter. And I think that when you watch Anthony Smith compete, specifically last night, Saturday night, what you see is in his brain, he knows what he needs to do. He hand fights well, or his intention to hand fight is good. His jab, he intends to throw it, and he intends to throw it with sort of a mature level of volume. He looks to sit on punches when he needs to. He tries to grapple at the right times, but his body just doesn't do it anymore. It just doesn't. And there were so many moments in that fight where an Anthony Smith of maybe 20 fights ago would have had the athleticism to get the 2 inches extra out of the pocket he needed to in order to avoid the big smashing left hands. But he didn't. And so his face exploded. again. And I think the real crying shame of this is, given what his brain knows about fighting, it is so much more valuable on some form of desk analyst type job where he can tell people, oh no, this is what should happen here and this is what should happen here, because he does know. I can tell he knows. But the issue is, there is an element with which he wants to be the man in the arena, right? And maybe he thinks if he goes in and he beats Khalil Roundtree Jr., he can be the one calling out Alex Pereira. But we all know how that fight goes, and it's not good for Anthony Smith. So I don't know whether somebody in the UFC or in his corner team or in his family or in his friendship circle needs to try and have a reasoning with him as to what the exit plan is, right? Because let's be honest, he's not retiring after this one. There'll be another one, right? But I think there needs to be a conversation about what the exit plan is, because what you don't want to do as Anthony Smith is take so much damage that not only your body can't do it, but your brain can't do it either, because then you've lost both careers.
Well, Harry, the exit plan is the work on the desk, isn't it? But you beat yourself into a cylinder, you're not going to be able to do that in 10 or 15 years' time, perhaps. It's such a tricky situation, and like, I do empathize with someone like Anthony Smith, but I know some people don't like calling for retirements, but I don't know, I don't really have a problem with it. Like, I call it as I see it. Like, do I need to see Anthony Smith in more fights where he's getting beaten up? Like, he doesn't need to prove anything to me. He's proved himself immensely over his career, but look, at all of that had to be brushed aside. Khalil Roundtree had to go in and get the job done. He's been on his own rise through the light heavyweight division, and he did an excellent job as well. Smith did pose some problems. He was right in front of him. He was throwing shots, but I thought Khalil remained patient. I thought he fought excellently on the outside, selected his shots, chipped away at Anthony Smith's legs, and kind of just, we talked a lot on whether it was the preview or the breakdown show as chasing the finish or letting the finish come to you. And I think Khalil Roundtree Jr. let the finish come to him. And I think he was confident that it was going to come to him eventually at the very early stages of this fight too.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think as soon as they got in there, he was like, oh, fuck, this guy's technical. He knows what he's doing. But then very, very quickly, he also realized, oh, I hit way harder and I'm way faster and my brain works way quicker. And so I'm just going to stay out here because I know he's going to come to me. And then I'm just going to slowly, I've got 15 minutes here. I'm grand. I'm just going to chip away and chip away and chip away and chip away. And it'll come. Like, even when he rocked Anthony Smith multiple times during the fight, he's just like, it'll just come when it comes, right? It'll just come when it comes. And I think that was a really amazing thing that we've seen from Khalil Roundtree Jr. And I think in some element, just a slightly off tangent, is this I think is what happens when you have a fighter who's very, very, very confident. They just go in and they say, what happens will happen. I am very confident to pass off the result, knowing that all of the thing that's in my control is just that I go out there and fight to the best of my ability. And that feels like what Khalil Roundtree Jr. is doing now. I have no problem with the Alex Pereira call out. Does he get it? I don't know. But
I think as he's reaching for the stars a little bit and calling out Alex Pereira. I think one more and a good win. He's probably, but look, I don't blame him for it. Don't get me wrong.
Say it right.
I can't believe that he's only 33 years of age. He's got plenty of time. I thought he was much older. He's been around for a long, long time. I just checked his age here. But yeah, no, look, you got to call your shots. I'd be more angry if he didn't go in and if he went in and he said, oh, that's the UFC's job to match me up, all that. No, just fucking call your shot. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. He called his shot. Don't think he's going to get it, but it'll be interesting. I like Khalil Roundtree Jr. He deserves this run that he's been on. It was a good win against the guy in Anthony Smith. Like, it could have been a potential banana skin. I feel more so that with Khalil Roundtree Jr., his mentality in recent years has gotten him over the line in these type of fights. And considering, he had some dodgy performances, losses to Ian Kutalaba, Johnny Walker, and Marcin Prashianov, he's definitely turned the corner since that run of losses. And yeah, I'm glad to see him up there. He's exciting when he gets in full flow, and whoever is next for him, fair play to them. Moving on, Nasrat Haqparast. There's the gift that keeps on giving, Harry. We were in, we were out. Is he bringing us back in again? Because this was a very good.
No.
You're not having any of it, are you?
No.
Go on, please.
It was a fantastic performance. I'll finish your sentence for you. It was brilliant. But he does this every 5 fights. You know, he just has a night. And this is why we were in at the very, very start, because it's easy to have performances like this when you're fresh into the UFC and they're giving you matchups in and around that lower tier of your division, right? Nasrat Haqparast, when he's on his day, looks just like this. Hits really, really hard, laser beam, straight shots, picture perfect hooks, beats the body well, and his footwork's great. And that's exactly what we were looking at. He just landed really well, picked his shots well, circled off when Mullarkey was firing back, and then just left body kick, left body kick, left hand, and Jamie Mullarkey is all over the gaff.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, we see with Haqparast, and again, I'm being hypercritical, but the finishing sequence, you saw at the end, he took like a big breath, like, oof, I'm glad the referee pulled him off there, because he was gassing himself trying to finish that fight, right? And that's because he didn't take a step to just have a little think about the right shots that he should have been throwing there. Yeah. And the right shots were not the 750 small hammer fests. We look at controlling that turtle, and we look at building some gravity and landing some elbows, and we land some big uppercuts. And you know what I mean? Like, there is
two solid, clean shots in that position is going to do better than 25 or 30 small kind of rushed shots in that. And you know, that's a good read by you. I didn't even think about that myself, but you know, that having that level of killer instinct is very important as well, in knowing when someone is hurt, knowing what to do. And look at that was a big win for him, I have to say, against a guy like Jamie Mullarkey. It's 3 wins on the bounce now. John McDessie, Landon Quinones, Jamie Mullarkey. So, you know, he's going to get a relative name of Providence, relevance, I should say. I don't know where that word came out of. Next fight. So I think that will be the true testament to see where he truly is at. But you're not convinced, Harry. Who do you think would be the guy that will test him out before, or maybe if you want to answer, you're not convinced first, and who do you think is the best one for him? I'm
not convinced first because I just haven't seen anything different. Like I've seen this Nasrat Haqparast. This was the Nasrat Haqparast that got me so excited. This was the I'll slightly name drop here. When I was training at TriStar, he was just starting in the UFC. And this is the guy, like, for us would talk about him. You'd see him hit mitts. You'd see him sparring. He looked electric. He looked absolutely brilliant. Like, his rounds with Stevie Ray were just some things I'd never forget. They were fantastic to watch.
Yeah.
And then I see him. What do I see? I don't see the same guy I saw in the gym. And I understand, like, you're never going to see that guy, right?
Yeah,
that's fine,
yeah.
That's fine. But I didn't see that guy. I've not seen him add vast tools to his arsenal. He's still a boxer with good hands and solid defensive movement. I don't see much else. Like, who do I want to put him against? Let's do the Mark Diakese rematch.
Yes, I love that one. Actually, that's brilliant. Like, do you think it's like a level of consistency, or do you just think that this is his ability and he gets to rise up in opponents and he'll be found out again? Is that what you're expecting to see with Nasrat Haqparast?
Yeah, definitely. Like
Nasrat Haqparast, I murdered
like
that.
Jamie Mullarkey is a perfect opponent for Nasrat. And don't get me wrong, that fight could have gone wrong as well. You know, it definitely could have. But Jamie Mullarkey is a guy that wants to stand and bang. He's there to be hit because he wants to hit you. And if Nasrat is on, you get a performance like you did on Saturday night. If Nasrat's off, Jamie Mullarkey would have pucked Nasrat Haqparast all over the octagon. But it just happened that Nasrat was on and he looked great. He looked absolutely brilliant. But now let's see him against, like I say, maybe a Mark Diakese or somebody similar who hits just as hard and could really crack, but it's just going to grapple, you know? Is just going to get in there and try and win. And what does he do then? Can he stuff the takedown now? I don't know that he can.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think, like I said, I think this is a good win for him against a decent guy in Jamie Mullarkey. But yeah, bigger test will come, and it'll be interesting to see. Look, we talked about Anthony Smith's decision to come in at the co-main event, and maybe it was a bad error, but we were a little bit apprehensive about Tim Elliott coming in here as well, especially after being taken out there in his last fight as well. But it seemed like a good decision for Tim Elliott. He went in there, just was completely better in all departments than Sumajari, and got an arm triangle choke within 4 minutes of the first round. And look at Tim Elliott, obviously saw this. He obviously fancied himself. Seems to be in a good headspace too. I know he had a lot of stuff going on in his personal life as well. So coming in here and getting the win on short notice is going to be good for him. And I mean, yeah, nothing to get too excited about, but this could have went absolutely disastrously wrong for him at the same time, Harry. But he put in a damn good performance.
This was, and I mean this with all the compliments in the world, this is about as routine Tim Elliott look as you could imagine. Gives some super, super weird looks on the feet, grabs a single leg, runs your man down, and it's done. Like, he fucked with Sumadajri on the ground so easily. Sumadajri had absolutely nothing on the ground for Tim Elliott, and look, I understand people will look at the Muhammad Mokaev fight and say, oh, Tim Elliott, he got subbed or whatever. Tim Elliott's a solid grappler. Make no mistake about that. Just Muhammad Mokaev has a very specific style for MMA that just works. And I think that we can take nothing away from Tim Elliott in losing to what will be a very, very, very elite level fighter for a long, long time in that division. But I agree, the Sumadajri, he's just not on the same level. He just isn't. No. And Sumadajri, Elliott basically let him hit him loads and just didn't phase him once. And then he was like, fuck it, I'll just take him down now.
Yeah, well, it was like, I'm just going to, like you said, I'm going to mess around with you here on the feet a little bit. I'm going to throw a few shapes. I'm going to have a little fun, but I'm just looking for my opening to go in. And it's like he wanted to remind everybody as well. It's like, I got submitted in my last fight, but I have a little bit about me here and I can put a guy away. He put a guy away relatively easy, which, I'd have to give Tim Elliott all the credit in the world for coming in and doing that. Like, I didn't like the idea at the start. Look, he's 36 years of age now. Coming towards the latter stages of his career, and look, he could have easily went in there and got trucked there against Sumajari, but no, he had that confidence in himself, in his abilities, and I think that was on showcase there on Saturday night. And that was one of the positive fights on the card. I'm glad he got the win. I think after everything he's been through, it's hard not want a guy like Tim Elliott to go in and experience wins like that. At 135, maybe we just stick him at a couple of fun fights at 135. Never mind this cut down to 125, Harry. What are you thinking?
Depends what he wants to do. If he wants to stick at 125, I want Steve Erceg next. Yeah. If he's at 135, give him whoever he wants. I don't know. Give him
you don't want him thrown in with killers there at 135 either. Like, come in and fight your Sumajaris and pick your fights wisely now to round out off your careers.
Can we do 135, Dom Cruz, Tim Elliott?
Oh, yes. That would be a silky fight. That's a really good fight. What's this? You've been taking some matchmaking courses on your spare time, Harry. What's going on here? You're on fire with these. But yeah, fair play. Tim Elliott, good win. Moving on. Andre Muniz versus Jun Young Park. What? Yeah, this was an awful fight. And I think the one thing that I had and that stood out to me the most is how bad Andre Muniz has gone in recent fights. It's like, this is like a different fighter now. He looked like an absolute killer on his come up and then just got a taste at the top of the division. And it seems like he's just completely backtracked. He seems more one-dimensional now. No interest in standing and striking whatsoever. This was a split decision, and I agree with it. I mean, he was lucky not to lose this, Harry, really, in reality, wasn't he?
I mean, the first round was close. The second round was closer. I thought the third round was grand. But he just looks labored and slow, and he just looks like he doesn't know what he's fighting for. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to talk about Kenan Song and Kevin Yusei shortly. We're going to talk about Shannon Ross and Hyung Park. We're going to talk about Garcia Costa, these sorts of people. When they're fighting, there's an intensity with which they're fighting at. At the end of round one, Muniz walked back to his corner like, fuck, I don't like this. Like, I don't want to do this, And that's a scary, scary thing for a guy that's not been in the UFC all that long, frankly, been in the UFC 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Like, not a ton of time that he's been in the promotion. And you're right. Is it a confidence thing? He built to the very top. He felt the level, and his brain said, "Oh fuck, I'm never getting up there." Or is it just he got to an athletic prime and we're watching a decline? I don't know. But there's been a string now of some performances that have just been relatively lackluster. The Brendan Allen one, fine. Brendan Allen has looked fantastic in his last fucking 7 or 8 fights it is now, and he's a far better athlete, and he's got the grappling that we can turn away. But this one, like we talked about this on the preview show, that this was a marked step down for Andre Muniz.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And it just didn't look good. Like,
no, that was one thing. I was like, where is this guy that we've seen go out there and absolutely blitz through Ronaldo Jacaré Sosa? And look at Sosa was at the end of his career, but like Eric Anders is, in my opinion, when he fought him, was probably a better fighter than Jun Young Park, to be honest. And he went and blitzed through him as well. Uriah Hall was probably the start in the chinks of the armor, where he was like, okay, I can't solely use my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to win all of these fights. And he didn't showcase anything on the feet here. It's like, I really love when you say, and it's very true about certain fighters, that you've got to put yourself in difficult positions. And look at the Iron Turtle. He does hit hard. He is a bit of a beast on the feet, but like, you've got to at least try something. And look, he wasn't interested in doing that. He wanted to get in there. He wanted to grapple, and it almost didn't work for him. It was almost his 3rd loss in a row. And yeah, I'm disappointed in Muniz, because I thought he might have been something. Hell, we even did a fucking contender about him. You know what I mean? He got into the illustrious contender show, and he's after letting the side down completely. So, very interesting. Who do you want in with him next?
Caio Borralho.
Yeah.
You do Caio Borralho. You do it on a fight night in Brazil at some time in the year, because that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And then Caio Borralho is going to be able to grapple with him if they decide to grapple, and Caio Borralho is going to be a better striker than Muniz is, and he will get another notch. Like, we know that they're trying to round out Caio Borralho so he can push him into some form of title contention or up into the upper echelon of the division. Andre Muniz is a style matchup that the UFC, if we're following the UFC's narrative for Caio Borralho, that's the fight. Like, that's the fight.
100%. You mentioned Kevin Juice. He went out there, got a unanimous decision over Song Kenan. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Decent. He can scrap Connie. He fucking hits so hard, and you can really tell that he's one of those CKB guys. Footwork is the same, stands nice and tall, just like Israel Adesanya, picks his shots, doesn't waste a lot of movement. And Song Kenan is a guy that's not that easy to beat. Like, he's not one of those guys that's going to be, top 5, banging on the door for a title. Obviously, I think he's like 35 now or whatever he is, but he's a very well put together fighter, can fight very well everywhere. He's long, hits hard, he's crafty, technical. And Kevin Juice just beat him up for 3 rounds. Like, I was very impressed. Like, I don't have, I think with Kevin Juice, I'll answer your second question before you ask it. Like, I don't know what we do now, because he's 32 or 33 himself. And so it's not like he's a 25-year-old coming in here with a ton of time. And so he's gone and he's beaten a very good name in Song Kenan. Do we do the Ian Gary? And do we say, here's D-Rod, right? Do we say, well, what about a Brian Battle, who's also got some good names under him, could do a bit of the scrapping, but is also one of those weird, crafty kind of fighters? Or do we bump him a bit and do we say, here's Neil Magny? I don't know.
I think one or two options is giving him an unranked name, like someone like D-Rod, someone that fans can resonate with. But I'm more along the lines of a ranked opponent. Next, you got Fakhretdinov there. You've got Neil Magny. What about Fakhretdinov versus Juice? What? And we'll get
that fight. Can I throw one name in there just because it's coming to my brain?
Go on.
What about Gunnar Nelson?
Ooh, yes, son. Get me some of that. Yeah, that would be a perfect unranked name that you could get. Oh, I like that too. There's a couple of fun fights there for you said, but look at like you said, at 32, it's got to be off to the races soon. He's got to maybe run the 10K first and maybe getting that name to Gunnar Nelson, and we got to put him into the marathon then soon after that, because yeah, time is a ticking and the welterweight division is heating up there now. I don't think that he's championship material though, is he?
No, I think that he is probably going to linger around that top 15. I suspect he will maybe come into the rankings, maybe drop out of the rankings, come into the rankings. He's going to be that sort of fighter. But he is going to be a problem. If guys are not good enough, right, or not well-rounded enough on the feet, he's going to be a problem for guys, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Big guy as well. Like Sonkanana is a big guy too, and he was looking burly in there, as the guy says. Hyung Sung Park went out against Shannon Ross, climbed to 9-0, picked up a lovely shot to the liver in the second round, and followed up with TKO grounded shots. A good performance. Shannon Ross started well, but as the fight crept on, you could see the gaps in quality. You could see the confidence kind of leaving Ross and coming into Park. And that liver shot that he landed was absolutely beautiful. It was nasty, and it was one that would have finished a lot of people if it landed the way it did. And Hyung Sung Park, he looked all right there. I think, this was a win. This was a fight. I think he was almost guaranteed to win. If you can almost guarantee a win from anybody, I think he'll fight much more sterner opposition at 125. But, it's another one in the mix here, Harry. Another good prospect, another undefeated prospect coming in at 125. And Park did show some good traits in the fight, but, made a couple of mistakes too that he's not going to get away with against higher level opposition as well, I feel. What do you think?
I'm just going to throw the name out there. What about Joshua Van?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now we're talking. Do you think that Park needs a little bit of time outside of the rankings before we start thrusting them in there against ranked opposition?
For sure. That's why I like the Joshua Van fight. Both prospects, we're going to see which one pushes on and gets that fight. Park obviously hits very, very hard. I really like the body kick that set up the shovel punch to the gut that was the finishing sequence. It shows that he knows that Ross was there to be hit. And he's one of those, like, if you get body shot finishes, it means that you're very intelligent in your maturation of striking, because a lot of guys just headhunt. They just throw to the body so that the head is opened. If you are willing to go to the body to finish a fight, that's really, really impressive. So fair play to Park. But as you say, Shannon Ross, what's this, 7 defeats in a row now, whatever it is. Like, this is, it's tough. It's tough.
He's got to go. I'm surprised he was given this one, to be honest. I don't know whether he took it on short notice, but that's his 5th loss in a row, and it's probably he's probably not going to be fighting inside the octagon again, unfortunately for him. But we shall move on. Another KO by Steve Garcia. This was a fun little fight. Garcia came in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. This was a fight that was originally scheduled for a couple of weeks back, or maybe even 1 week back per se. Yeah, 1 week back. Got these guys to cut weight again for the second week in a row before going in here. I love that. I know you love that, Hammy. Big thumbs up from Harry. That was one thing like stood out to me when these guys were walking in. I was like, what? These guys weighed in again, and they're weighing in again? I was like, whatever. But look, at Garcia went out, got the job done against Michael Costa. A good performance, a good win, and a guy that is going to cause a little bit of a rumble, I think, in the lightweight division, but not too much of a rumble. That being said, your thoughts, Harry?
It was a horrific performance from Costa. If you spend an entire round with your partner up against the fence and you're doing absolutely nothing other than just trying to take his back, then not only do I think that referees should be saying, nah, chief, we're not doing this. You need to do something, right? But you deserve to lose, right? Like, do something else. This is an MMA fight. You can't just try and take a man's back. Not even chain wrestling. Just trying to hop on his back with jiu-jitsu. Forget it. For who's next? What about Thiago Moises for Steve Costa?
Yeah, I like it. I like Moises. I like that fight. Moving on. Luana Santos versus Stephanie Egger, 135-pound division. This was a very poor fight. And I was very surprised by Luana Santos because in comparison to her UFC debut, I think against Juliana Miller, it was a good performance, an impressive performance, but I think it kind of showcases a little bit more how bad Juliana Miller is, more so than how good Luana Santos was, because she got tired here. She took some shots, and on another night she could have let this slip through her hands as well, but she got the job done. Stephanie Egger, I mean, nothing really to write home about with Stephanie Egger. She's not that great a quality either. She's moved to 8-5 right now, and yeah, I mean, nothing really too much to get excited about with either of these ladies.
Melissa Dixon next for Luana Santos.
Let's do it. Ba-boom. Now, let's talk about the first fight first, and let's talk about your boy last. I didn't like it. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it because all he's been waiting for is Tatsuro Tiara, and I'm not going to make you wait anymore. I'm only joking. Carlos Hernandez. I mean, after a couple of decisions, you're left wanting there from a little bit from Tatsuro Tiara, but he came out with vengeance here and got a beautiful left hook and finished this fight wonderfully against Carlos Hernandez. And I'm back in as, like I was calling him, the future of the flyweight division. He has me completely sold. And I think before we discuss anything, we've got to remind ourselves that this kid is only 23 years of age. Like, he's got so much time, but he's showing so much leaps and bounds in between fights. We know he can go the distance. We know he can pull off a decision. Now we know he's got that big power and he can finish you as well. And he decided to bring it all out to show us on Saturday night, Harry. He was the focus of your Severe Spotlight on Monday, and I'm going to give you the floor to tell us why.
We've got one here. Like, I've been on this train. You and I have been on this train for a long time, since his UFC debut. And yeah, he is something special for sure. There is a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. There is certainly a long way to go. But some of the things that we critiqued about Tiara's performances in the UFC prior to this one was he's sometimes a little bit of a slow starter, sort of takes a bit of a couple of shots to wake himself up. And then sometimes he can get into these mad scrambles where he has to use his jiu-jitsu in order to get back to dominant position, and then he goes on to win fights or whatever. His transitions when he gets on top, his transitions between submissions and these sorts of things have always been fantastic. But he is in a situation now where he is slowly starting to put everything together. And the confidence that he showed was just out of this world against Carlos Hernandez. And I don't necessarily just mean in the fighting. From the ring walk to him standing around in the cage, he looked large. He felt large. His emotional presence felt large. He felt like he meant to be there. And at 23 years of age, it's really exciting to see. He goes out, and from minute one, he just said, nah, tonight's not your night, big man. I am taking absolutely anything I want here, and I'm going to take it when I want. And he just dominated from pillar to post. Like, Hernandez went back to his corner after the first, and you could see in his face, he was like, oh, fuck, this guy's fucking good. Like, I've got 2 rounds left with this motherfucker. And, yeah, the left hook, the low feint to set up the left hook was just savage. Like, he's
unreal, and like showing a level of ability in the striking department that we've not seen, at least inside the octagon anyway, Harry, because we're 15-0 right now, I believe, for him. He has 11 of those wins by finish, submission, or 7 submissions, 4 knockout losses. So, like, showcasing really his well-rounded ability. Was brazen enough to call out Muhammad Mokaev after the fight and showcased a bit of English as well, which is always a bonus. So he's going to be very, very marketable in a number of years. Mokaev call out, was it brazen for you? Is it too much too soon?
Should he's never getting that fight. Yeah. That fight. The name that I wrote down immediately was Tim Elliott, because I think if you want to take a big leap, Tim Elliott is like a really nice halfway house where, he is 36, but he'll definitely cause you some problems. Do I think Tiara wins that fight? Yeah, I think he wins that fight relatively handily. But if you go out and you smoke somebody like Tim Elliott, you can then say, well, Muhammad Mokaev just only beat Tim Elliott. Give me that guy. Like you could feasibly do that if you wanted to track a Mokaev fight down. But
and Mokaev came out after the fight and said if Perez pulls out, if his fights stay ready. Now, fair play to Mokaev as well, and he actually made a point to say that there's a lot of fighters in my division that wouldn't give a guy like that opportunity. I'm not one of those guys. So I want to give Mokaev all the credit in the world. Now, that being said, Tiara might want it. Mokaev might want it. The UFC might have other plans as well. And at 23, I'm very paranoid. You mentioned it about Edmund Shabazian a couple of weeks back on the Breakdown show. And like, ever since you've been saying that, I mean, like, you're right. Like, we used to build these guys up and make sure, like, not build them up to a title fight. It's building them up to when they get that title fight, that they're going to be good enough to stay there and defend and compete. And, Edmund Shabazian wasn't lucky enough to kind of get that luxury inside the octagon. And I just hope they don't do the same with Tiara as well. I think, at 23, there's plenty of time here. You can let him build, you can let him grow. And he is a real kind of, like, he has that real star quality. He has the well-rounded skill set. And, you get that feeling when you watch these guys that, I'm the type of fella that will say, like, I'll get too excited and say a lad is going to be brilliant, but I really feel it with this guy. And like, hearing you say it as well gives me that extra bit of confidence as well to kind of nail down that point about Tatsuro Tiara. And look, we're in for a fun ride with him. It's going to be a big 2024 for the Japanese fighter at 125 pound, and business is a booming at the flyweight division now. It's really great to see. Last but not least, Talita Alencar took on I might not have even seen this fight. I can't remember if
useless, garbage, awful.
Terrible. Yeah, not great one now to kick the night off. Really set the tone on it. But I mean, there's not too much to say about this one, really, Harry. I mean,
Talita Alencar is a jiu-jitsu world champion. She tried to get the fight down in round 1, failed. She got it down in the other 2. That's it. Fight done.
There you go. And then we kind of see that with precision jiu-jitsu artists coming in. Who was the other lady that came in with the similar enough credentials and was finding it difficult to get?
Lol.
Yeah, maybe once upon a time. But how's an ever? Who would you want to give Alencar next to you, Care?
A contract with the PFL.
There you go. Get her into that 100,000 tournament pronto. Maybe she traveled down to Vegas because the new jiu-jitsu gi world championships are on. Or maybe did she end up in the wrong arena, Harry? Is that what you're saying here?
Maybe these things can happen sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps us up. Last fight night of the year, last Apex show of the year. Song Yadong got it done in the main event, and that was it. It's a wrap. That was our second last event of the year. We're going on, obviously, to preview the big UFC 296. We'll see you later on in the week for that. Go and follow at BJJ_Harry Powell. Go and follow Balance Grappling, and go and check out the Severe Spotlight where Harry waxes lyrical on the keyboard about Tatsuro Tiara's performance and chances and ability in the flyweight division. Until then, we will talk to you the next time. We'll break down the UFC 296 as we do each and every week. I don't know, might be, depending on travel arrangements and how things go, might be a little bit later, but hopefully we'll be back at the same time as normal. O'Neill MMA is where you can catch me. Good luck, God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.